U.S. Census show how Americans migrate and what's behind it.
Harvard professor found guilty for his lying on joining the CCP's Thousand Talent program.
Washington, D.C. airwave invaded by CCP for $4.4 million propaganda spending.
Welcome to Wei and Kathy Show. I'm your host, Wei Fang.
And I'm Kathy Zhang.
Okay, so we have three stories to bring to you. The first is actually the U.S. Census data has been coming out. As you know, the 2020 is the census year. Every 10 years, U.S. Census would conduct this, the demo stats and counting all the people in the U.S. since 1790. All right. So what did the most recent data reveal? Okay, first, between 2020 and 2021, the country has seen the lowest population growth since its founding time, at only a 0.1% increase.
So what's the biggest decline? It had occurred in Washington, D.C. and the Democrat-led states, which with the D.C. topping the list with a decline of 2.9% of its population since the census was taken in April of last year, followed by New York with a 1.6% decline, Illinois with a 0.9% decline. Hawaii and California had both saw a 0.7% decline.
And this is where we are. Where in California, this is the first time California is losing net population. And in the meantime, interesting enough, population grew in the Republican-run states, starting with Idaho at a 2.9% increase. But this is contrary to the D.C. Okay, both are at 2.9%. It's just one is plus, one is minus. And followed by Utah with 1.7% population growth, and Montana 1.7, Arizona 1.4, South Carolina 1.2. And the two big states, Florida and Texas, both saw a population growth of 1%.
So guess which is the largest gain in a domestic migration, which means the movement of people from one area of the United States to the other. So probably you can guess that's Florida with over 220,000 migration. It's a gain. The largest domestic migration losses were in California, which lost over 367,000 residents.
If you look at general region, okay, the South of America was the only region that has had a positive net domestic migration of 660,000, okay, between 1 year, 2020 through 2021. And the Northeast region lost the most people due to the domestic migration at a minus 390,000.
So what's the reaction by the California Governor Gavin Newsom? A spokesperson from his office told Fox News last week that, quote, the California exodus is a myth, end quote. Yeah, and he said...
And he or she said California's economy grew at 4.7% annual rate in the past quarter century compared to 4% in the U.S. growth. So basically, his point of view is, we have better economic growth. Why the population is leaving? That's a myth.
So really is it a myth or not?
Yeah, please, can you type it up? Is it really a myth? He feels really puzzled.
Yeah, maybe also our viewers can let us know, are you from California? And what's your opinion on this myth?
Well, what's your, explanation? I think each of us have our own reading. Mm-hmm. And, we and Kathy are both from California. And we do have people keep asking us, why don't you move? And,
including some of our viewers.
Some of you, yeah. Apparently, people moving is not out of myth, right? People move because they have good reason, strong reason. It's really, really never easy to move your home. That's a huge decision. And it is not a myth. And Gavin Newsom's administration really needs to figure it out. So Kathy, let me ask you. So why do you think California move away?
Right. I actually, actually encounter quite a few Californians who moved moved to other states, to like Florida, to Texas. And the most common answer was because of the high cost of the high tax in California and the ultra left policies that they just cannot endure anymore.
Yeah, and actually, I went to Las Vegas. Okay, 2 years ago. Las Vegas has the most vibrant Chinese American, how to say, Chinatown in the U.S., and it is just sprawled over virtually 2 miles. A 2 miles Chinatown. Can you imagine that? Okay, so I talked to people that there. Most people came from California, and I asked them, so why? Well, the business owners said because it is too expensive over there. And again, it's just like Kathy says, it's too liberal. They cannot bear with it. So I just wish Gavin Newsom would ask us, is it too much a myth? We have an answer for you. It's not a myth. It's a huge decision people have to make, and it's a decision of great pain. And people won't leave their familiar home. And if they are not forced to, and they are making a lot of decision there.
Yeah, our friend in the audience, Death to CCP, as he's or her pronouns, he said, my neighbors in New York, one has moved to Texas, another moved to Florida, another looking to moving to a GOP state. So, this kind of reflects what the census summarized, right?
And around the Los Angeles County, there was one congressional district was wiped out because of the loss of the, population. 53 congressional district was reduced to 52, and while Texas and Florida both has a gain. Yeah, so that's basically the situation. This is indeed, as I interviewed Professor Paul Skolson of Utah, and so he told me that this is what it meant to be. Okay, 50 states with their state's constitution, their own way of running, their work, running their government. And it means 50 different laboratories for America. Each state is free to try their own policy. You can choose, a liberal one. You can choose a conservative one. You can choose a middle ground. Time goes by, 50 state, 50 tracks. It will show us who would prosper, who would not. And then, Americans will learn, naturally from it, and then we can then adjust ourselves.
Yeah, and that to CCP said, move to a state with CVS, Walgreens open. That's right. So that won't be in California, not in San Francisco that you will be moving to. All right. And Louis said, truthfully, we are not that fond of transplant. Many comes and wants to change things like where they came from. So our response is, if you like it so much, go back. Yeah, a good point. Actually, for example, I was covering an event in Texas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's one lady who moved from California to Texas, and then another person who's a native Texas, and he just said, you can come, but don't bring your liberal ideology or policy here. So I think a lot of people do think alike, as Louis just said.
Now let me present you with a myth. Why haven't Wei and Kathy moved? Can you just guess your reason? It takes you 10 seconds to type up. What do you think is the reason? Why didn't Wei and Kathy move? Oh, by the way, just so you know that Wei and Kathy does not. We don't have a house here, so we could just pack up and move. But we have not done so, and we probably won't be doing so. And you want? Can you figure out why? you can think it over. Okay, while we move on, we can come back to the answer. How about that?
Okay.
After the next piece of news. But in the meantime, just if you guess right, we need to figure out a way to give some award, right?
Okay.
Oh gosh, we need to think about that. But in the meantime, just do your guess, if you want. All right.
Okay.
So why these two people keep sticking there? All right, so next piece of news is quite, attention-catching. Kathy.
Yeah, so actually I wanted to ask Wei and the audience, if you carried $500 to $1,100 bills in your luggage and flew over for 10 hours coming home, would you forget about that?
Oh, I will be scared at that.
Okay.
Because when I go through the custom, Supposedly, the custom officer, they could open it up and ask me, so are you laundering money here? I will not forget about that. I will be really scared about that. I'm going to remember that for a long time.
Okay, so
But I never did that, though.
Right. So mysteriously, the Harvard professor who was on a criminal trial yesterday, he claimed that he forgot about that when he carried that kind of money from China coming back to the US about 10 years ago. It is 10 years ago, but he totally forgot until the federal agent presented him some evidence and he said that, oh, now that you mentioned, I remembered.
So, Kathy, you mentioned about 500 to 1,000 bills, right?
$100 bills.
bill.
Yes.
That would take a lot of space.
Okay, so who's that? That's Dr. Charles Lieber. He's the former chair of Harvard University's Chemistry and Chemical Biology Department. He was found guilty yesterday on December 21st for lying to federal authorities about his affiliation with the Chinese government's Thousand Talents program and the Wuhan University of Technology, abbreviated as WUT, as well as lying to the IRS about the money he was paid by Chinese government, by the university, and concealing his Chinese bank account. Dr. Lieber, now 62 years old, he was convicted by a federal jury in the federal court, district court in Boston. The sentence will be scheduled at a later date. So what's the story? Maybe some of you already know, but let me give you just kind of a rewind of what's the story behind it and what's the implication. Dr. Lieber was the chairman of Harvard's Chemistry and Chemical Biology Department, and he was seen by some as a potential Nobel Prize winner. His research is pretty pioneering, and his research group at Harvard University received more than $15 million in federal research grants from the Department of Defense and the National Institute of Health between 2008 and 2019. According to the Department of Justice, without notifying his employer, Harvard University, Lieber became a strategic scientist at Wuhan University of Technology, and later became a contractual participant in Chinese government's Thousand Talents plan from at least 2012 through 2015. So what is Chinese government's Thousand Talents plan or Thousand Talents program? Department of Justice describes it as one of the most prominent Chinese talent recruitment plans designed to attract, recruit, and cultivate high-level scientific talents to advance Chinese government's scientific research, economic prosperity, and national security. And according to the documents, the Wuhan University of Technology paid Lieber at a salary for up to $50,000 per month, plus living expenses up to $150,000, and awarded him more than $1.5 million to establish a research lab at the university. But when the federal agency investigated Dr. Lieber in 2018, he denied his involvement in this recruitment plan and his affiliation with the Wuhan University of Technology. Later, he was arrested by FBI at his office in Harvard in January 2020 last year, indicted in June and charged in July 2020. So when he was interrogated by the FBI for 3 hours, he at first denied receiving such income from the Wuhan University and participating in the Chinese government's recruitment program. After the agents presented more documents, including the contracts he signed from 2011 and 2012, Dr. Lieber said, "Oh, I should pay more attention to what I'm signing." And he said, oh, it's pretty damning. Now that you bring it up, yes, I do remember. So what he remembered, he told the agency that a portion of his salary was deposited in a Chinese bank account, and the remainder, which he estimated at between $50,000 and $100,000, was paid in $100 bills, and he carried home in his luggage. All right. So he said, oh, they just give me a package, a brown thing with some Chinese characters on it. I would just, I just threw it into my bag. And after returning home, I didn't declare it. And now I know it's illegal. So that's his explanation. And he also acknowledged that he wasn't completely transparent when approached by the investigators back in 2018 from the Department of Defense and the NIH. Why? He said, I was scared of being arrested, like I am now.
That's honest admission.
Well, but if he knows he would be scared of disclosing this, then why he did it in the first place? He knew something was wrong, right? Otherwise, he won't be scared. So Dr. Lieber told FBI on the day of arrest that he said that the relationship with the foreign partners were never as straightforward as they seem at first. He said early on, if someone say, we'll give you this title and we'll pay for your travel, obviously it's not only travel, right? And he said, you don't think anything about it. But he said partners always want something from you. Okay, what's something from you? He didn't explain. So he said a lot of countries, money is what they have in access. This is one of the things China uses to seduce people. Okay, I highlight this. I want to highlight, his quote, just to, really, he was saying something, honestly, money is something the Chinese Communist government used a lot to seduce people, to stretch their long arm into other countries.
Can I just insert a story?
Sure.
A little episode, Kathy. So about 2 years ago, I met a Newt Gingrich, former congressional speaker, House Speaker. Newt Gingrich is chairwoman of his PR firm. And we were having lunch, and he talked about his story. He was working at National Geographic, and she received the invitation to travel to China, just one trip. They would pay her $200,000. And I said, then? She said, I turned it down, didn't go. So I asked her why. She said, looks very fishy. One trip, they gave me $200,000. There must be something behind it, so I turned them down. I really, admire her for doing that. And, the money from the CCP has just like, like acid. It just corrupt people. And most people, I think, won't be like, the chairwoman of the Gingrich's PR firm, right? I think 50%, 60%, they're going to fall for it. But indeed, there are people who just stay strong and stay right and don't, fall for the easy money. And okay, let's continue.
All right. So then Dr. Lieber explained for him, he said, maybe money is not really the reason. He said it's more about the desire for acclaim. He said he was hoping to burnish his credential with the Nobel Prize Committee by training young scientists in the use of a technology he had pioneered. He said that I was young and stupid. I wanted to be recognized for what I've done. Everyone wants to be recognized. And he said it's embarrassing. Every scientist wants to win a Nobel Prize. He even compared this with his son, who is a high school wrestler. He said the Nobel Prize is kind of like an Olympic gold medal. It's very, very rare. And then he said that that's probably the underlying reason I did it. So what do you think?
Well, I think this is his vulnerability. If you go after
money and the fame.
Name or the profit, and name and the profit, then you are vulnerable. A good scientist, ideally, in my view, and shall be someone who really just focus on his work, and then let the Nobel Prize come by itself. But if you're attached to name and the fame, and then CCP are very, very cunning and very, very vicious. They scan over your, completely across your spectrum and find that vulnerability, and then they're gonna come in, and you will fall for it because you have that weakness.
Yeah, so that's, then when the federal jury was, in the process of deliberation, the assistant U.S. attorney, Jason Casey, reminded the jurors who, he said, it's not that the defendant has no memory, okay? And he said he does not want to remember because he knows that he agreed that contract and that he participated in the 1,000 Talents program, and he took bags of cash onto an airplane and never reported them to the IRS. And eventually, the jury, deliberated and found him guilty of, multiple accounts. So here's some of my observation and a way you can pitch in, just to share what you have observed. And so it's very interesting. What you may wonder, what's the reaction from the Chinese Communist government? Today, the Chinese Communist government tried to defend its international scientific exchange program. The Foreign Ministry spokesperson, Zhao Lijian, said China managed such exchange along the same lines as the U.S. and other countries. He claims U.S. agencies and officials should not stigmatize such program. All right, and how about the media in the United States and the academic, the people in the academia? New York Times reported, said among that report, it quoted Dr. Lieber's lawyer, Mark Mukasey. He said, see no villains, no victims, no one got robbed, no one got rich. But over a few seconds of conversation, the world's greatest nanoscientist is facing multiple felonies. What do you think?
I do want to insert some comment here. So indeed, that's true. Okay, that he was not even charged with collaborating with CCP and hurting the national security of the U.S. and causing people to die. He lied, and he was caught. This is how serious this country is about. You don't raise your right arm and you lie. Okay, to lie to law enforcement, to lie to the court. This is what this country was about. It was like that, since 1790 until today. And every American needs to take this serious, especially those the VIPs and those celebrities and those high officials. You don't lie to the court. You don't lie to the government official. That's a moral issue that has to do with the nature of you as a person. So I think that's really, in my yesterday's show, I highlight this to my audience, my Chinese audience. I said he was not charged for stealing anything. He was charged with the 2 accounts of felony in lying, and then 4 accounts on the tax evasion. All right, this is what this country is about. This is great law, right? With that, we can stop a lot of bigger harm, and this is what America is about.
Yeah, and to elaborate on what Wei just said, but I do think, although the defense lawyer said, okay, no victims, no one got robbed, but what would be the consequence?
Yeah,
when it can equal to some kind of espionage, right? Because indeed this scientist, he's a great scientist academic-wise, but his technology, if used by he's training the CCP's young scientists. So for them to, master those technology, and they will be used in attack the United States, attack the whole world. Can you say no victims, right?
Yeah. The good part is we caught him lying, or we stopped him, by catching him lying. And if we don't, let's say if we follow his attorney's rhetoric, then we let him go on, and then he's going to really, really hurt our country and hurt a lot of people. So yeah, that's our law at working.
So then the New York Times also quoted a Washington, D.C. lawyer, Peter Zettenberg, who represents a dozen of researchers who are under the investigation, but because of the similar situation. And he said, Lieber's case stands out because he was specifically asked about his participation in the Chinese government's recruit program, and he lied about it. And the lawyer tried to rationalize such behavior, said that the reason people like Lieber lie is because they are afraid. They are afraid to answer truthfully. Are you a member of the Thousand Talent Program? He said, I'm sure during the Red Scare, people said they were not a member of the Communist Party. So I think what he said was true, but if again, you see, if you are scared, then something was wrong in the first place, right? What do you think?
Yeah, that's true. Why do you lie? Actually, as a matter of fact, joining the Thousand Talent Program is not a crime. There's no law against it. Even in the U.S., you wave your flag and become a propagandist for the CCP. It's your First Amendment. Nobody will charge you with anything. But why did he lie? Why did he lie? Why did he not say, yeah, I joined them? It's just, they invited me, I agree. And I just need to, just let the government know that he would be off the hook. But he did not. All right.
Yeah.
And why? That's the reason. He knows something's wrong, right?
But, as a matter of fact, Dr. Lieber wrote to a Chinese colleague saying that maybe it's because someone, he referred to a Chinese who doesn't like me, brought this attention to the NIH. That's, privately, that's what he's, that's what he said. Then, his lawyer, Mark Mukasey, said in the close argument that he claimed the U.S. government has not enough proof of wrongdoing and risk the silencing of pioneering research. He said, isn't it troubling that nobody in this courtroom has explained what the Thousand Talents Plan is and who's in it? And he continued, Dr. Lieber's work was all public, was for the benefit of the world, yet he's facing criminal charges for it. So actually, I didn't have the, time, to really go through the whole trial, but obviously, what is the Chinese government's Thousand Talents Program? What he said, nobody talk about that. Plenty, and the DOJ just explained very clearly. And so maybe, let's just talk about it, all right, the Thousand Talent Program or plan. It's also called the Overseas High-Level Talent Introduction Plan. It was organized by the organization department of the Central Committee of the Chinese Communist Party, the Ministry of Human Resource, and the Social Security of the Communist Party in China in December 2008. So the plan is centered on the development strategy of the Communist Party of China. The goal is to focus on the introduction of high-level talents studying and working overseas. But on September 29th, 2018, the Chinese government required relevant units not to publicly mention the word Thousand Talents Program. Why? They explained it is because of out of consideration of the safety of the overseas talents. On April 18th, 2020, since that day, last year, April 18th, the search results of the Thousand Talents Plan on Baidu, the search engine in China, and other social networks in mainland China, as well as the social networks like Weibo or WeChat, have all blocked. And you may wonder why. What happened in 2018? In November 2018, the Attorney General and the Trump administration established a project called the China Initiative. It aims to curb theft of research and critical economic U.S. intelligence by the Chinese government. According to DOJ's website, which was updated about a month ago, this initiative was established because, quote, about 80% of all economic espionage prosecution brought by the U.S. Department of Justice allege conduct that would benefit the Chinese state. And there is at least some nexus to China in around 60% of all trade secret theft cases. Okay, and according to DOJ, the China Initiative reflects the strategic priority of countering Chinese national security threats and reinforce the president's overall national security strategy. DOJ explained that the initiative was launched against the background of previous findings by the administration covering China's practices. So actually, in this regard, you can see both Trump administration and the Biden administration are, they actually on this issue are agree with each other. So that's the explanation of the 1,000 talent program, which the defense lawyer tried to dismiss, right? So then I want to share with you the media. Again, the media and the academic. Actually, I shared with you the media's response. Actually, even before the trial yesterday, I noticed most of the media, including mainstream media, also media like BBC, they all focus on describing this China initiative as very controversial, and it was criticized heavily by academia because they said it's harming the academic research and amounts to racial profiling of Chinese researchers. Then after yesterday's deliberation, again, many of the media still focus on that. And hundreds of faculty members at Stanford, Yale, Berkeley, Princeton, Temple, other prominent colleges have signed a letter to U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland calling on him to end the initiative. You can see how, I don't know how you think. Either those academia is just not clear about what the Chinese Communist government tried to do with this recruit program, or they were compromised. I don't know. So, and then, again, some of the people, for example, a graduate student of Dr. Libers, he now managed his own lab. Okay, he told New York Times that he said it's in this case is about to scaring the scientific community, and he said he praised Dr. Lieber's work. It's gonna be breakthrough in bioelectronic medicine and how significant it is. And he said now, he just it's so unfair to him. That actually reminds me of another story which just happened here in the Bay Area, who's a distinguished physics professor who's at Chinese descent, Zhang Shousheng. Wei, do you remember?
Yeah, Zhang Shousheng. He jumped from from the
top of
top of a building and to his death, or he was thrown out of that. We don't know, but we know that this very highly successful scholar died just a few years ago.
Yeah, and he's a pioneer in physics and was predicted to win the 2014 Nobel Prize in Physics, although he didn't win at the end, but it was highly regarded, and he's also an entrepreneur. Okay, so when he committed suicide, as reported 3 years ago, December 2018, but later it was revealed that actually he has very close connection with actually he's a member of the Thousand Talent Program, and also has a very close connection with the embattled Huawei CFO Meng Wanzhou. Remember?
Who break the U.S. law on the censorship to the Iran and was detained by the Canadian government, and who recently managed to get out of that and ran back to China.
Yeah, actually, this Professor Zhang Shousheng was a brilliant person. At the age of 15, he was admitted to a famous university in Shanghai, Fudan University, and he majored in the physics second department, which actually a lot of people don't know about that. We and Kathy, we both were studied in Fudan University, and we didn't know until later. This department is actually called the Department of Atomic Energy, and it was disguised for the sake of confidentiality. Did you know about that, Wei?
Yeah, at that time I know. I almost went to that department actually.
Yeah, so the Chinese government, starting from this person, age of 15, already preparing him for what he's going to do for the government, okay? So Zhang went to, graduated from Fudan, went to Berlin for graduate study, then went to New York to get his doctorate degree, and got his tenure from Stanford University at the age of 32. Highly successful. But he was recruited in 2018 when the Thousand Talent Program just launched. And he, was to do research in the Tsinghua University in Beijing. He was very active in helping the U.S.-trained Chinese researchers return home, and expressed his desire to help bring back the front line of research to China when he was interviewed by a Chinese news portal. So right before Zhang Shousheng's death, the U.S. Trade Representative released a report in November 2018. It reveals that Zhang's venture capital firm in Silicon Valley called the Digital Horizon Capital, also known as the Danhua Capital, was linked to Chinese government's Made in China 2025 Technology Dominance Program. According to that, the trade representative's report, his capital firm, just like a DHVC, are ultimately aimed at allowing China to access virtual technology from United States startups. And his firm lists 113 U.S. companies in its portfolio, and most are falling within emerging sectors that the Chinese government has identified as strategic priorities. So you may wonder what's Made in China 2025 program. According to the United States Trade Representative Program, it combines economic espionage and aggressive business acquisitions to aid Chinese government's quest to become a tech manufacturing superpower. The program was launched in 2015 and has been cited by the Trump administration as evidence that the Chinese government is engaging in a strategic effort to steal American technological expertise. So just one day before this report, Hoover Institute actually published another investigative report called China Influence and American Interest, Promoting Constructive Vigilance. Wei, do you remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's done by over 100 scholars and the China experts. And in that report, it echoes the United States Trade Representative's sentiment. This report, the Hoover report, has almost 200 pages investigation, argues that China captured much valuable new technology through its investments in U.S. High-tech companies, and is more generally attempting to manipulate state and local governments, universities, think tanks, media, corporations, and Chinese American community. So when Zhang died, actually, it's very close. The timing just close to the U.S. Trade Representative's report release, as well as the arrest of the Huawei's CFO. Meng Wanzhou. She was actually arrested the same day. It was exposed that later on, but the two of them actually met. I forgot the country they met just right before. So this really fueled the serious doubt about Dr. Zhang's death.
Yeah. Did he commit suicide or he was murdered? It's anyone's guess.
Yeah, so why I think of this story, I think there's something really kind of similar. Both very distinguished scientists, very accomplished scientists, and both were recruited under the 1,000 Talent plan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, another information I want to share with you. Actually, just last month, in Stanford University, there was a virtual forum was held focusing on just trying to undermine the China initiative, saying it's racial profiling of scientists from China of Chinese descent, and it claims the negative impact of such profiling is having on the scientific research in the United States. So prominent members of the Stanford University community, including the university's president, and the president said, in this university, we have over 1,000 students, scholars from China. Actually, that would include Professor Zhang Shousheng, right? And so sometimes those, it's really, I think, mind-boggling. It's like, do they really don't know about the Chinese government's controlling of a lot of those students, scholars, or something else?
How about I just give you the quick answer? My guess, okay? Behind all those activities, all those forums, those whatever public voices, including the Committee of 100 who organized that forum,
Yeah.
CCP regime were behind them. As simple as that. They organized those things. We know how they work, and it has always been like that. And those, however, professors or academia people who wrote letters to the DOJ secretary and tried to, Attorney General about that, expressing their so-called concern. Are they naive or they were bought? CCP is a regime, it's a communist regime, okay? And its animosity against the U.S. can never be underestimated. They do not just compete with the U.S. They want to defeat and bury United States of America. That's the threat that we're facing now. And they in the name of the academic freedom, they said they're just quite, unthinkable how they think. But I don't blame them. I think behind all those, there is the party's hands there. Okay, it does not happen just naturally. They don't. Anything that's supporting CCP in the U.S. does not happen naturally. There's always hand behind them, and for that to get into shape.
Yeah, as we mentioned, the organizer of the forum is called the Committee of 100. Those are the Chinese Americans who are the leaders in the business, academia, in the United States, but they are, helping to extend the Chinese Communist government's rhetoric and force. It's because actually the Hoover Institute report and another report from Newsweek, they all noted that these committee members have been targeted of United Front Work Department of the CCP, pressure and influence operations. So, yeah, so I think people, really need to be aware of that. Some of them, they are clear that they were manipulated by the Chinese government. They were bought, but many of the Chinese, fellow Americans, even maybe in those committees or in the universities, they are still not clear-headed. So yeah, we would like to really let people know about that. So in talking about that, actually the CCP's influence in operation don't just limit to those areas, right? That leads to our next story.
Yeah. Okay, so as you know that during the Trump administration time, they really strengthened the implementation of the FARA.
FARA,
FARA, yeah.
Foreign Agency.
Yeah, Foreign Agency Registration Act. Okay, that require that for the CCP-backed organization in the U.S., basically U.S. law that cannot allow the U.S. government to shut them down because there's the First Amendment, but they have to register with the Justice Department with their, just foreign countries proxy representative, and in that status. Okay, because of that, Justice Department was able to force a so-called media called CGTN. CGTN is Chinese Global
Television.
TV network. Yeah, Global Television Network to register as a foreign agent in February 2019. All right. So the next piece of news: the Virginia-based WCRW AM 1190. This is AM station covering Washington D.C. and Maryland. Okay, they air content from the CGTN and also a series talk shows that portray China in the positive light. As a requirement of the FARA, strengthened FARA, the radio owner called the Potomac Media Group, have to detail its lucrative contract with the Communist Party's International Communication Planning Bureau in its filing last Thursday, and it was quickly caught by the media, by the Washington Free Beacon. All right, and then what is that contract? Basically, okay, CGTN signed a 2-year, $4.4 million, agreement to air the content of the CGTN. CGTN basically is English media, okay, not media. It's English whatever propaganda, voice, and then they just took the audio stream and aired that on that big station. And then for 2 years, they were paid $4.4 million. Guys, ways in this field understand how much it is to lease a radio station. That's that's over the price. Okay, nobody would say no. I mean, business-wise. Okay, but I want to just go back 4 years ago. Okay, to tell you another story behind this very station. This AM 1190, yes. And the Reuters in 2017 did a investigative, reporting on the 32 covert radio network run by CCP, Chinese government, all over the world, mainly US and Europe and Australia. All right. So the particular story behind this very WCRW is like this. Okay. In 2009, this company called the Potomac Radio executive asked Loudoun County of the Virginia, and for permission to erect 3 broadcasting towers on the land owned by a county utility. Okay, and then the new towers would boost the signal of this station tenfold, from 5,000 to 50,000. So how do they convince the county? They said the new towers offer the last hope to retain Loudoun County's only radio station. Okay, the paperwork made no mention of any planned lease time to anybody. All right, then that was in the application. The Potomac Radio also invoked a text of September 11, 2001, a day when the station provided, quote, critical information to the county businesses and the parents as mobile phone service become overloaded. Okay, the application claimed that the new tower would contribute to the public safety. All right, so Board of Supervisors of the county approved the towers. Okay, and then in the days before the station came back on air in April 2011, now we're talking about 10 years ago, Potomac Radio and sought the FCC permission to change the name to WCRW. And you wonder, what is WCRW? Because that was requested by the Chinese government. WCRW means Chinese Radio International. All right, so the Loudoun County officials found the signal now carry the Mandarin Chinese language from the China Radio International, the state-owned radio station in China. And they were very surprised And then they just, one supervisor, Kelly Burke, said it was all very deceptive. Okay, and she said they presented all about local radio and they never let on what they were really up to. And this company then, the owner said there was no deception. He said his company was approached by the CRI several months ago after the county approved the towers. Well, you can try to believe it or not. So anyway, long story made short, this company, this very radio was leased to the Chinese language China Radio International for several years. Reuters broke the story. Okay, they were scared. Okay, they pulled back the program, and then after this, in the last 4 years, they managed to lease to the English version from the Chinese government and the English version of media from the Chinese government, and then they received this $4.4 million. Okay, in 2 years contract. Guys, that radio probably they only own worth $8 million. In 2 years, they can collect to $4.4 million. That's how much profit is in it. And you have to ask another question: why so much money? Just like why throw this $100,000 bag into the Professor Lieber's suitcase? There has to be a reason. So basically, this is how CCP tried to carry out its propaganda in this country and sabotage our the public opinion here. Because by the U.S. law, Federal Communication Act, Chinese government and no foreigners can own more than 25% of the U.S. radio. Okay, so that's what they do. They lease. They come in and they lease. They circumvent that the limitation by the Communication Act, and they just carry out this way. And unfortunately, because of the enforcement of the FARA, they have to report the DOJ of this deal, and then now it can become publicized. Mm-hmm. And by the way, there's 15 stations like this in this country, 15 stations. Like people like us, we cannot afford an $8 million or $12 million radio. We cannot, even though we have great program, but they are able to do this because CCP has enough money. They come in, they cannot buy, they just lease one station after another station after another station. Day by day, they try to sabotage our, the thinking of Chinese Americans or even just, American. And so that's what has been happening.
Yeah, so talking about the amount of money the Chinese Communist government is spending to operate their influence in the United States, actually, reports show that China has been the top spender on foreign influence operation in the United States. So from 2016 to 2020, it just roughly it's increased 540%. Okay, so
they treat this as a war. Propaganda to them is a war. It's literal war.
Yeah, think about it. Mm-hmm. In 2016, they spent $10 million. Okay, in its operation influence influence operation in the United States, and last year, 2020, it increased to $64 million. Mm-hmm. Oh. Think about it, $64 million. And so, how it would, it's a propaganda effort, how it would create a discord and spread disinformation. How would this create a long-term ramification for the American businesses and politics? Just think about it.
Yeah. Okay, so it's been a long hour. Thank you for staying with us. Now we need to review the answer, the answer to the myth. And why did we and Kathy stay in California while 330,000 people left? And what's the reason? Okay, first, Luis Fernandez, you said because you are smart and you are fighters. And you also said people need to stand their ground and take their states back. What is that? Bingo, right? You answered that right.
Yes.
You got that right. And Jim Novak said, you have family here? Is that why you are not moving? No, we don't. We're fine here. And the home and Dean, actually Ruth Campbell, you said, answer to the move, to keep close to the issues and fight for what is right. Bingo.
Yes.
But there's more answer. Okay. The reason why we stay here is because we've been here working for, 2 decades. In the Silicon Valley, we reach literally 200,000 Chinese Americans here. Okay, and we believe Chinese American would be the first, how to say, group of people, first group of Americans who could widely wake up and to the threat of the CCP to this country, and then they would run to the front line and educate and notify and made aware of the general America, the threat that it's facing. Okay, we need to keep communicating this group. In another way, we are here to counter WCRW, just media like that, the fake media like that. That's our duty.
Yeah, which was infiltrated by the Chinese Communist government.
Yeah.
And in San Francisco, as bad it gets, the Chinese Communist government really view it as their backyard, as the place that they will retrieve to. Okay, so that's why they spend so much money, so much effort to infiltrate the Chinese community here in San Francisco. And Silicon Valley, definitely, it's the place they try to control as well. So if we all left, we just hand it over to the Chinese Communist government.
Yeah, and Lucy, you wrote this. Very surprised that CCP hasn't either tried to buy you out, bribe you, or try to shut you down. You're a threat to them. Every word you said is true, and but the later part is true. Okay, we're a threat to them. They have not tried to buy us. They did. Okay, they have. Bribe us. They have. And try to shut us down. They have. They've done all those. They just did not succeed. Okay, that's our story. That's the entire different topic. But yeah, we've been here, and we're here because it's the right thing to do. And California, needs people to here stand firm and then not move their ground. And someday we're going to win America back, and we're going to win California back. And then for now, I mean, the biggest existential threat is from CCP. It really just corrupt our nation, corrupt the people in this nation, and like this Harvard professor. So somebody has to stay firm and do the things that needs to be done, and so are their audience, right? Which are you? And let's stay together and do the right thing. And and thank you for being with us tonight.
And I saw also, I forgot, I lost it, but was wishing us Merry Christmas. So actually here we would like to wish you all, a very Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. So we will not do program on the Friday, so that you can have a great night. But we want to wish you really, really Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And as we continue into the year of 2022.
All right.
All right. Good night.
Have a great time.
Yeah. Have a great evening and have a great Christmas.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care.